Hey Brooke, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you, Chris?
Awesome, thank you, and thank you all for joining us, the audience. We all appreciate you very much, and as always, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't even know, Brooke. So today's topic. Now, I know recently we've been adding a number of topics on top of each other to kind of like break it up a little bit. But today we have one big one, and this topic was brought to us through Brooke. And I'm curious if you could describe the topic of how astrology plays into the spiritual process. And I'm curious, Brooke, if you can explain where that came from, what happened there.
So I guess it's funny because like you could say that just the way we've been presenting this stuff, you especially saying that you never really looked into astrology before, but
Mhm.
you see that the last thing we talked about leads into it. So it's
Yeah.
really when we talk about the Lion's Gate. So really this is like the rabbit hole.
Mhm.
Every piece of information you get about one thing leads you to another,
Mhm.
and it's like down the rabbit hole we go. So I do always reference the fact that I was brought up, Christian, and, like I said, not in a forceful way, not in a probably the most beautiful way possible. So the Bible is something I reference, and, and not the way that it's taught in most churches.
Yeah.
It's for the way God shows the Bible to me, not the way it's interpreted through some churches. And it just came to my attention, like how, you were just saying, like, astrology is not really something I ever looked into. And I think some of us don't realize at the time how connected everything is. I mean, you look at astrology as like this separate entity, but when you dig into even parts of the Bible, when it comes down to it, the three wise men were astrologers, and that's how they knew something was going on.
Yeah.
Um,
Please forgive me because, while I'm familiar a little bit with the Bible, what are are you saying about like the North Star and how they use that to guide them? No? Or
Yeah, but it's
okay.
if you go into it, there's a lot of information. So I like to think that you and I with this podcast always just like we get the surface for people,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
totally.
And we just touch lightly,
Hmm.
and the fact is if you want to know more about the things that Chris and I talk about, oh, you can go way deep with this stuff and the information is out there. I think that we are just going to like introducing
Yeah.
the topics to people, and believe me, like we hit it like on the very like surface human level. You can go very deep with this stuff,
Hmm.
but so there's a lot out there explaining, how and who, why the wise men, what brings it to them being astrologers.
Yeah.
But
Gotcha.
and then there are, I never knew it. Because when you go to church, you will hear the same like 20 stories presented to you like every year. It goes round and around and around.
Hmm.
And then when you look through the Bible or any religious text, because they all are ancient and they're all valuable, and they all touch on the same things. It's just how they're interpreted differently. But I would have never known until about a year ago that the Seven Sisters star cluster is mentioned in the Bible. I'll have to find the exact, I meant to look this up. We're doing this on a short notice, guys. Like,
Yeah.
Chris had this topic and he has some information. And so I meant to actually find these verses. I never knew in the Bible that Orion, Arcturus, all of these are mentioned,
Mhm.
so when you start to look at the Bible as more of a cosmic story than like a story of, just these people and these lessons, it's really all there, and it
Mhm.
really is more of a cosmic story than it is a story of just people,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. Totally. And yeah, and I mean, obviously, we're not saying go out and read the Bible. If you want to, go ahead. But
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't, no
And
worries.
that's the thing. So for me, it's the connection because it's the information that I already have. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And we all get to, and we'll all eventually get to a certain knowing and understanding by how it was on our journey.
Hmm.
Again, our journeys, and this is so important in this time right now to understand, our journeys are so individual. and so unique. And we all, even the best of us, get in the habit of looking at somebody else's journey and judging a little bit, because, you know, and the thing is the best thing we can do is just walk next to somebody else on their journey, but just know that, you know, there's no one place we're all supposed to be. And however it is that your individual soul gets there is beautiful, wonderful, and perfect. You know, it's just like I said, I reference it a lot because that's how, you know, because God knows I know certain scripture, so he'll bring certain, and there's a lot of times that what I learned in church, which there was always a hole in it for me, when he brings it to me, I'm like, that's what that meant? Holy crap. So, you know, that's how they'll communicate with me, because they'll communicate with us all so individually and different, depending on where we've been on our journey, you know? And so that's just, so that's why I reference it a lot, because that's what they use for communication for me. And the cool thing about any religious text or ancient, you know, text is it's almost like it's a living word. So it's okay that at one state of consciousness, you take the information for meaning one thing, but you have to keep yourself open and not just get stuck to that, because like religious texts are also multi-dimensional. That they will mean one thing at one time, and then as your consciousness grows, you'll see that it means something else.
Well, it's a great point. And you know, people that are, when you start tapping into that spiritual communication, which is how, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but like when you are tapping into spiritual communication, you are interacting with multiple, like you may have different dimensional connections of one particular soul come in and communicate with you. And on one dimension, you're getting information that is tied to maybe like more of the physical. And on another level, you're getting stuff that's more tied to their soul's purpose or to their soul's growth. And, or even could be on another dimension, you're getting past life stuff. So it is very important to understand that in one channel, in one aspect of communication, you could be getting multiple layers of communication from the same entity, being, spiritual being.
Because at all times when something is being played out in the spiritual realm, to us here, a story is being played out in the physical. You know, so it's like, you know, we have a lot of stories going on planet Earth right now, you know, and these are the physical stories that we can see, which is why we're always saying, if you can kind of be above and observe, you know, the story playing out and not get yourself too wrapped up in it. But it's like at the same time, there's a spiritual story being played out, but it's being played out here in the physical, so we can reference, you know, what's going on.
And that's a great, it's a great point in the sense that too, that's exactly how astrology works. Like, so there are these events that occur outside of this earth, outside of us, that can impact ideas, energies, movements that we have and see in this world. And for instance, the Lionsgate portal was one example, but the study of astrology is exactly what Brooke just said there. It is how the different energies external us, but more tailored or more specific to the astrological plane than it is, you know, the third dimensional right here plane. So we already know about the moon and how that affects the shifts of the tides in the water. And the one thing that's been coming up recently is how much water we are. You know, there's like what, 75% of our body, don't quote me on that, but it's a large percentage of our body is water. And we've talked before about how so many studies out there have shown us that how we talk to water can impact its shapes, impact its cohesion, you know? And can distort it.
Even its makeup. You know, there's videos out there that are so cool, and it's something you learn in Reiki, you know, to there's people that are religious that bless their food,
Yeah.
you know, and or you know, I need to stop saying that, because it's not, you don't have to be religious to do these things. There is something, and there's actually a video that shows it. I wish I knew I was going to talk about this and link all these things, but they actually, so you take, there's drops of water they put on microscopes that are just, you know, from a bottle of water. And then there's the water that you like touch, and, or, you know, you write the word love on the bottle, or you hold it with the intention of love and healing when you drink it. And then they put that under a microscope. The entire chemistry of the water has changed.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff out there if you guys want to look into it. So that goes with, you know, how our bodies are 75% water. I think you're right with that number. It's around there somewhere. But how we can talk to our bodies and think, if you can change a bottle of water with these words and these feelings, imagine what that is doing inside of your body when you give yourself love and you give yourself these things. You can change the entire chemistry of your body.
Exactly.
You know?
So Brooke brought this topic to us some time ago, or I don't know. I think you just alluded to me bringing it to you, and I don't recall that, and I'm sorry about that. Either way, we've been doing some research on it and found a few things that we wanted to share with you. And now this blog that I found that really resonated with me a great deal only touches on the idea of astrology and its effect on the ascension process or your awakening process on a very superficial level. It does not get too deep, but I feel like, as Brooke pointed out earlier, that's just kind of how we work as well. So there's a reason that we're going to talk about this particular blog. And the website in which I found this is called thewaybackmeditation.org. And that's all one word, thewaybackmeditation.org. And it's a blog about in this particular topic is in their blog section. And he starts off the blog in this way. He says, spiritual matters and astrology are sometimes discussed together and to the person in the street may seem connected. Astrology is concerned with understanding the connection between the movement of celestial bodies and the events on Earth. So, understandably, he says, then some say the astrology is one of the 7 keys to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Therefore, it is reasonable to ask, does astrology play a role in spiritual development? And that second question that he asks, or that question that he asks for, is a question that we are only going to literally scratch the surface on today. But the point that he makes there, in that astrology is concerned with understanding the connection between the movement of celestial bodies and the events on Earth, that is really what we're going to hit on today. And the author's name is Mark. He doesn't leave his last name, but if you go to that website, you can see it. And it was written actually just last year, September 22nd of 2022. September 22nd of 2020. So now that is such a huge understanding, in that when you look at it, every time we hear about astrology, we hear about how it affects the way we feel, the energies that we're picking up around the world or Earth. And then also, you know, you have these like portals that are open. Now that's something we need to get into a little bit more, but that's typically what we hear of when we hear, or typically what we hear about when we hear about astrology and how that's affecting us. So that makes complete sense. You would agree, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the Lion's Portal is a prime example of that we discussed last week. And I don't want to rediscuss that, but he brings up there are 3 aspects of astrology that astrological readers will attempt to talk about. And I will say this, I have reached out to so many astrologists who are psychics to try to get them to come on. And I'll tell you, that is a tough nut to crack. I cannot get these people to come on. I mean, I've reached out to people across the country, across the globe. I had a woman in Ireland.
Ireland, yeah.
Yeah, that I was trying to interview, and I just can't get them. They even say they're going to do it, and then they don't show up, and it's crazy. So
yeah, it's probably the timing too, because like what's good for us might be like 3 o'clock in the morning over there. You know?
Yeah, so true. So true. So the guy Mark brings up three. He says that when you go to an astrologist who is also a psychic and trying to help you, he says there are three different topics that they talk about: astrological transit charts, which are they are natal charts that answer the question who you are, and they look at what's happening now. Put simply, and I'm reading this verbatim right now: what effects are the planets and stars having on you right now or in the near future? And I do find that a lot of these, I do subscribe to some of them. And I used to on Facebook. I'm no longer there. But I have noticed that there is a lot of there's a lot of good information that comes from that, and it can explain a lot about the different things that you're feeling at different moments. So it's definitely not something, by far it is something to be considered when doing all of this.
Absolutely, because this goes into something that I've been passionate about getting this message out about. You'll have like a lot of sites, whether it's like a Schumann resonance site or like, a lot of the energy sites, and he'll be like, oh, how are you feeling today? You know what I mean? Because this person in particular may be having what we call a negative day, or some issues going on that day. And then you have people going, well, God, I'm fine. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. These energies, we're all at these different frequencies, and we are all, each energy that comes in is going to affect each of us different. I mean, how messed up would it be if the whole globe is having a bad day on the same day? How wild would it be if we were all in our like mania woo for a day? You know what I mean? Well, I mean, that could be fun if we all had one of those woo days together, so it's like these energies, it's almost like a cool way that they made sure that it took turns with us. That way, while some were, purging and doing their job, others are holding the light, yep. And then vice versa. So, mm-hmm. Just because somebody else, it's cool when you find somebody else who is synced up with you. Mm-hmm. And I've actually come across other people who are in sync with my moods. And so you're like, oh, we must be kind of on that same like energetic level, or we match these frequencies when they come in. And then you see other people who were perfectly fine when you were not well. And then, a week or two later, it's kind of like their turn for whatever alignment it is affecting them at the time.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely right. And that reference to the different, seas. So, when the moon comes out on one planet, or I'm sorry, in one section of the world, and the tide rises in one section, to elaborate on your point about how we're all affected differently, a tide that occurs in one section of the planet doesn't occur on the other. And it's just like, it is exactly what you just described, and how we all experience energies at different ways and at different times. So like, I may feel it today, but then Brooke might feel it tomorrow, and you may feel it the day after. So definitely all ties into the relationship of, hey, each of our paths are different. Each of the ways that we feel energy are different, and we all have to be very accepting and understanding of these differences and act in accordance with that, not separating ourselves, but understanding that we're all one, just experiencing it in different ways.
Yeah. And I guess this goes into the astrology of how, I guess, I better pay more attention when the moon is in Scorpio, or this is in Leo, or that is in, you know what I mean? Well, so I guess that's how it does play into it.
Yeah. So you're right there, but there is something else that that I want to bring up. And this is where I feel like this guy really, and actually in this blog, he interviews somebody else, and
ooh.
Yeah, and he talks about that very point. And I'm curious.
All right, well, get back to it then. I'm getting you off track. Get back to it.
All good, all good. So we talked about the astrological transit chart, which is it answers the question who you are and what is happening right now. Then you have the natal chart, and the natal chart, it talks about and explores your personality and personality traits and predispositions. And anyone that knows or that goes to an astrologist for an astrological psychic knows that they are going to tell you about why you feel and interpret energies the way that you do. And that's where the natal chart comes in. Hey, what is my life going to be in the future? And it's all based off of how you interpret energy. But that interpretation is very subjective. And that is what we're going to get into with what Brooke just said. So the natal chart talks about your personality and your predispositions based on the position of the planets and stars when you were born. So yes, that can impact you and have an effect on. I know that I've done some online psychic readings where you just plug in your date of birth and stuff, and then they tell you, hey, this is how you think, this is how you are, and there's a lot of truth in it. A lot of them are really good and accurate when they tell you that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what he says is all you need to know is the place and time you were born, and that helps you determine that kind of stuff in the natal chart. So it's interesting how the alignment of planets can affect your energy and your personality and what you're predisposed to in your life going forward. I do find that to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the last aspect of astrology or the third chart that these psychics get into and how astrology can play into all of this is the astrology chart looks at the synergy, and I'm reading this, looks at the synergy or differences between two people. So you can use these relationship charts to see if you're compatible, or to see if you're compatible with a particular person, or the person that you're currently with is compatible with you. And that relationship could be anything. It could be a friendship. It could be your intimate, like your marriage. It could be your whatever, coworker, anything. And this is, he says in it, this is a very popular one for a lot of people because a lot of people that go to these types of readers are curious about the relationships that they have in their life and how, that is like. So what I'll say there, though, is that if you were to go to a psychic reader that deals with astrology, understand that you can overcome this kind of stuff, though. Like, just because your astrology chart or your synergy chart says that, hey, you and this person might not be compatible, doesn't necessarily mean you can't work it out. And that's what I want to talk about, or what we'll talk
Absolutely,
about later.
because that's the thing, because there's times that the person we're with might be something that is just in our path for our lesson, something we need to learn, or something for them. So we can't go by that. But I was in line, it was before my husband and I got married. I was in line for I think I was going to the Queen Latifah show, and we were in line, and this lady comes up to me and she goes, "You're a Scorpio." I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "And the guy you're going to marry is Aquarius." I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Okay, as long as you can get over not really knowing where he is and him not communicating and making phone calls and him kind of doing his own thing," she's like, "you two are going to be great."
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Cause I used to tell him it's before everybody had cell phones all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to tell him, I would be home with our ramen noodle dinner ready. That's what we were eating back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And, he got off work at 4:30, and also 7:00, he's not even around yet. I'm like, well, what the heck? And my whole thing is I honestly don't care where you are. Just go, hey, I might not be home till 8 or 9, so that I could be out doing something. You know what I mean? I didn't care where he was, but it was so true that he would just kind of, he was just doing his thing, like, get off work, I'm going to stop here and do this. And I get home and I get home. But it was really weird because she was like, she nailed it. And I feel like that little bit of information she gave me helped me with some more understanding. And I was able to like get past that with that little bit of help.
Totally. And like, you know, that's also when you get information from an individual and you take the optimistic perspective from it, but aren't necessarily tied to like these quote unquote laws where, hey, this sign is not
compatible,
correct with another sign. You know, you move in accordance with what you with what you feel intuitively rather than through these, the laws of astrology or what astrology says should or shouldn't happen,
Yeah.
So but there are some people out there that hold on to this very, very tightly.
Yeah.
And so like here's another example. Actually, we talked about the moon. Brooke just talked about the relationships. Mercury retrograde. Now, no doubt, so many of you guys have heard about Mercury retrograde and what happens in the Mercury retrogrades, which we have a few throughout the year. They're, fun times. But so for those of you that don't know, Mercury retrograde is, to put it in its simplest form, it's when a lot of these old, and we talked about this in healing, these old wounds kind of come up to the surface and test your healing. I mean, the Mercury retrograde is all about testing those healing potentials that you have, what you have in your life, and what you have healed from. So when the earth is in this alignment, in this retrograde, I always equate it to, and I forget where I heard this, but think of a bicycle. When you're seeing the spokes on a bicycle wheel, the bike is going forward, but the spokes look like they're going backwards. Right. That is a Mercury retrograde, because you're like, why am I feeling all of this old? Why am I feeling these old wounds? Why am I feeling this old energy that I feel like I have healed from already? Well, it's part of that 3-phase healing where the universe always brings it back up to test how truly healed you are. And our interpretation of it and our judgments of it and our expectations of it are extremely important. I say release those expectations, release those judgments, be present in the moment, and accept what is for what is. The universe is showing you, hey, are you truly healed? Or asking you that question. And then your response to it will determine if it continuously comes up or not. Did you fully heal? You will know that through how you handle this situation.
Yeah. And this is happening to you whether you believe in it or not.
Very true.
So that's the funny thing, because it's like, I feel like when I started talking about the moon, so many years ago, everybody, like a lot of people don't believe in it, and especially did at that time. But I'm finding that now that a lot more people are starting to see and understand that. Yep. And kind of my confirmation on these things is, didn't choose to. I just kind of like study people and study. And that's my fascination with why I do stay on Facebook, is because I've used it for so long, like to see kind of like algorithms of like when I know certain things are going on energetically, or when the moon, I can like see people, I almost see them in these moods, like when I go to stores during these times, like I'm somebody who frequents like the same stores and knows the cashiers and BS's with them. And like during these times of moons or retrogrades, I'll kind of go, hey, I'll be like, how are you today? She's like, oh my God, my customers today. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, really? Like, what's going on? Like, I kind of play stupid to get the information, but it's like, yeah. So it's like, if you doubt it, just kind of look around at these times and know they don't affect every single person in the same way. But you will find that a bulk of people are maybe having some tough times during these times, if you really like start paying attention to it.
Yep. And I'll tell you another thing too, like beyond Mercury retrograde, there are these solar flares within the sun that actually shoot energy to Earth. And you'll see like the Earth's resonance, Earth's ohm, you know, will fluctuate with the amount of energy that hits the world. And that's another way in which we all feel energy so differently. But when it comes down to it, it is how we handle that energy that is these, these shifts, these waves, because these alignments of the sun, of the planets and the sun are all part of why we feel these different waves. You know, we carry our own tides, if you will. And just as we said, a tide might rise in the west, but then lower in the east. And that is a prime example of how we each feel this differently, but how we mustn't judge the west or the east in its rise or fall at that specific time. We simply have to, like Brooke has so eloquently put and beautifully stated, hold the light for them. It's so important and very helpful to us all.
Yeah.
Judgments are such a huge aspect of this, though. It is our labeling, it is our judgment of what we feel that will really dictate and move us into a direction, whether it's high vibrational or low vibrational. If we can hold the idea of gratitude of, hey, thank you for allowing me to feel this, because what is it revealing within me that I need to heal? Or if we judge it like this sucks, obviously just from those statements alone, where are we going to go? That's certainly we're not going to be high vibrational if we're judging it in, that this sucks kind of thing. But
yeah, because our tides are going to come, our emotions are going to come, our waves are going to come. And I just feel like this information helps people to understand that, like it's you, but it's not you. You know what I mean? It's like, there may be something you have to look at. There may be something that is just being purged from Earth in general, that you are a conduit at the time that is being used to help purge this. Yep. And so it's just important to not be hard on yourselves or judge, or, it's like, I feel like there's so many things that can be a catch-22 because they hear us talking about the dark night of the soul and releasing. And, when these times come, please don't, yes, if you could observe a little bit and you can consciously know, oh, I think I'm going to get rid of this. That is so cool if you can. Mm-hmm. But if you can't, you do not have to sit and think about what's wrong with you. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Just, it's going to pass. Just sit as peacefully as you can for that time. It's okay that you're feeling what we would call a negative, and it'll pass, so just these times, don't be hard on yourself. Don't dig into, oh God, what's wrong with me? Why am I because I did that for so long. So I knew it got me nowhere.
Yeah. And so, all right. And so those are just some of the examples of how the different energies can affect us. Now, he goes into how the spiritual perspective can play into all this. And this is what I find to be so spot on. And what he does is he screenshots a conversation that he has with what I think, let me see. I think this is, okay, hold on. It's a conversation between a student, and himself. I'm sorry. So it's a conversation. It's not someone that he interviewed. It's just a conversation that he had with one of his students who was asking him a question. Now, I feel like this nails how this all translates into the spiritual realm brilliantly. So I'm going to read it to you verbatim. And he goes, okay, by the way, what do you think about Mercury retrograde? That's the student. Mark says it's real, but not relevant. Student, not relevant with a question mark. Can you explain? Then he goes, Mark says, spirituality takes you beyond astrology, which is 100% true. And we're going to get into this. So one thing I do want to preface this with, though, is understand, okay, everything that Brooke and I were just talking about how we all interpret energy differently, it is also very important to understand that we balance energy differently. So like when we feel a low vibrational energy, the age of your soul will really dictate how well you can balance energy out. And also the importance at what Brooke said, how holding light for someone that is maybe a little bit younger on a soul's age and struggling to balance that energy, how holding that light is so important. So let me just, I just want to put that out there. So now he says, the student, Mark says, spirituality takes you beyond astrology. Then the student says, I know, but when dealing with things on a third dimension, physical things, should we be aware of, for example, not starting a new relationship or signing contracts during Mercury retrograde? The physical world is still governed by physical phenomenon like Mercury retrograde, correct? With a question mark. And he goes, yes, agreed. But if you're aligned with your life plan and inner guidance, then things should run smoothly. There's, okay, that's, I don't necessarily agree it runs smoothly because there are always obstacles.
Yeah, I'm in between on that because I know, like, since I've been aware of Mercury retrogrades, you know, I take into consideration, I like being aware that there is something cosmically going on, but I also feel solid if there's a decision during that time that I have to make, I'm fine with making that decision.
Exactly. And
you know,
exactly. I completely agree with you. And I'll tell you, for those of you that don't know, when the Earth is in a Mercury retrograde, there are these, you know, psychics, spiritual psychics, astrologers out there that say you probably want to not make any large decisions, purchases during these moments and times, because you don't want to act on impulse. You don't want to act on just the moment, the time, the feeling of the moment. You want to be patient. But to be honest with you, you want to be that all the time. So
yeah, but I look back and, like, you know, I think all of us can look back to things we did, decisions we made that we go, wow, I can't believe I did that. Now it's like, how did I end up with that cat? How did I end up with this house? How did I end up with that car? How did I end up with that boat? So, but when you look back, but then you can also say, but I'm glad that I had that. And sometimes it takes this extra little bit of crazy to get you to do something you wouldn't usually do. Totally. And then you know what I mean? So not all those things are mistakes or shouldn't have done. Sometimes it takes that little extra something to move you at the time.
Yeah. So true. So true. And I mean, I just look at it like I'm someone that really tries to, anytime I get a feeling, I really try to step back from it. And I always look at divine communication as repetitive. They will push, if you're meant to get something, they'll keep pushing the feeling. So I might get it one time, but I'll step back from it, just observe, and then I'll leave it for a little while and see if it does come back up. And if it does continuously come up, I know then that's something that I'm supposed to move on. So, and that's where I not necessarily agree with things will run smoothly, because that I feel like that's, you know, they don't always run smoothly. There's a lot of obstacles. There are a lot of healing aspects that need to take place, and that does not feel smooth.
Yeah.
So
I personally just think as long as we're here in this realm, it's not supposed to be smooth.
Yes, exactly. I agree with you. We're in school, soul school.
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be smooth.
Yeah, but okay, so I'll finish reading and then I'll tell you what I do agree with him though. And then he says, we tend to find that friction occurs when we don't go with the flow. So either you have to try and control or moderate your behavior according to your environment, including astrology, or you are in harmony with it, and then there is ease. So, and then the student says, thank you. Such a simple and profound answer, makes sense completely. So yeah, but as we said, it's not so easy. You know, it takes a lot of work, effort to be still in the mind, to allow these feelings that we have to present themselves, and then see how reoccurring they are, to ensure that they are divinely inspired. But one thing that I agree with him completely on is that spirituality takes you beyond astrology in a superficial type of way. What I mean by that is that if you are aware of the energies you feel, that is step one. You become aware. Step two is you release judgment, you release expectations. Step three is you simply observe. And that is where you begin to go beyond the astrological portion of this and step in to a higher consciousness, to a higher level, and to the spiritual aspects of all of this. When you can do those three steps, and that is key to this.
Yeah.
Now, he says, why is astrology, his next point is why astrology is not that important from a spiritual perspective. And basically, he says, okay, first we need to acknowledge that astrology is real and is an ancient science. So I agree with that. And it is like the ancient Egyptians and the Mayans used astrology tremendously powerfully in powerful ways to affect their energy, to bring light, and that's where we can leverage astrology to really help us grow, rather than to look at it as it could be a potentially low vibrational thing. It can help us grow if we use it those times, those Mercury retrogrades, to ensure that we are fully healed when these old wounds come back up. Like, they are very powerful and yes, very real, but also showing us how we are able to control and separate.
I feel like we're in a time where most of us are just trying to figure out how to not struggle through energies, right? But I feel like where it would be cool if we could get to is if we knew that there was a struggle, but then we also knew that these are very energetically powerful times, and we can harness this energy to put into good stuff, and so, but we're in a phase where we're just trying to struggle through these energies, to where this is also a time where things are very powerful, and things that you are trying to make happen in your life, these are the most powerful times to make those things actually happen.
Yep.
So I almost feel like we're being led astray by the people that's like, don't make any decisions, to where if you know that there's a decision to be made and you're making it, these are actually the most powerful times to make something happen in your life also.
Yeah.
But with everything, there's that polarity, there's that pendulum swing, there's that, duality, so as much as things can be used this way, it's also a very powerful time the other way,
Well, yeah. And if something's been resonating or coming up a lot before this moment, and now it's just a moment that you're making the decision, then there's a lot of spirituality there. There's a lot of divine connection and communication that has occurred prior to this moment in time. So you can make that with a sense of confidence, knowing that, okay, this isn't anything that's just coming up at this moment. So you've taken the time to step back from it and allow it to build and resonate with you, and allow them to connect with you to reassure you that all is going to be well. So, and here's an example of that. So, before I quit my job in IT, I was getting that communication that it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Now, at the moment that they said go, I was already getting these messages for months, and I just kept stepping back from it, waiting for the moment that they told me to go. Now, when they told me to go, I didn't care where Mercury was. I went, it didn't matter. And that's exactly that is an example of what we're saying there.
Yes.
So now this next piece I found to be interesting as well. He says, however, astrology is concerned with observing the correlation between the physical planets, stars, and the physical world. This means that astrology is fundamentally based in geometry, numerology, and psychology. Therefore, astrology is concerned with the lower super spiritual realms. Man, they're okay. Yeah, see, that's not, I don't believe that to be completely accurate, because we know we all have connections. Like, these planets are also ascending. We know this, and are carrying consciousnesses with that. While the practice of astrology may be based in geometry, numerology, and psychology, that might be true. Astrology in and of itself, on an entire level, I feel is way deeper than just that aspect. And I'll tell you why. When I first started the channel, who was it that was coming to me? Orion. Orion, who was coming to me, and I did not even understand fully who Orion was at the time, and I was completely taken back by it. And yet Orion, as many of you know, has an astrological presence in the Orion's belt. So it's more than just what he's leading up, what he is understanding it at the moment. He's just looking at it on a superficial level, but it goes deeper than that. And we just have to be aware of it. Nothing more. So definitely an important idea that I wanted to bring up. And numerology, as you guys all know, and that's where a lot of your date of birth comes in, that natal chart that he talked about earlier. That's where all that comes in. Hey, what's your number? And you take your date of birth, you add that up, and then say it comes out to, like, I think mine is, I don't know, 16 or something, and then you add that together to get 7. Yeah. And then that's your number, that's your spiritual number, or whatever they call it. I don't even know. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's your life. Yeah, your life path number.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah. And and I told you guys about that before. It's very fun, very simple. Yep. That's one of the very easy ones to look up. Yeah, I was 11. But when you read about it, it kind of does help you understand. And I've read other people's to them. And it's funny because while they're like, no, and this is where all this comes in too, with our personalities and what's been done to our human versus like what our soul is. Because there's sometimes when I see people going, no, but I'm looking at it at a soul level, not at a human level. And if I look at the person on their soul level, this does match them. Yep. Now they're going no, because they're thinking about how they react in human situations or how they feel on the human side of it. But a lot of these times I've actually read them and I go, I can see how this person's not going to think this, but if I think about their soul, which is what I see, I'm like, this kind of matches up. So it's kind of cool, but that's a really easy one to look up.
Yes.
The natal ones, there's a little more that is involved, but life path number is really fun. Put in life path calculator and you can find out what your number is and read all kinds of stuff on it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing, actually, with what you were just saying there, where you were saying that they may not look at it this way. You don't think they're going to see it in this way, but because you see it from a soul's perspective, you understand how it is affecting their life. What is so interesting is to see if that person is able to begin that process of changing their mindset, their belief system, and then aligns to that. Like, that is so cool to see that. If it were to happen, I don't know. I'm sure it doesn't. It does in some instances, but how many, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. That's pretty cool. So his next one I do resonate with very much so, and maybe you do as well, Brooke, and you out there, audience. But he says spiritual awareness and insight within the higher spiritual realms reveal the presence of spiritual guides, ascended masters, and ultimately God, the source. Furthermore, through spiritual growth and meditation, you may discover that you are internally guided by your soul and spirit. Absolutely 100% yes, and not guided by the alignment of the stars. And Brooke and I provided an example of what not being guided by the souls, and the stars and the planets looks like. And that is when I quit my job, I was getting that communication before it, and regardless of where the moon and the stars were, didn't matter, because I knew the guidance was coming from above. I knew I could move, and I didn't care about Mercury retrograde or anything else. I knew it was the right thing to do, and I was moving in alignment with my with my soul.
Yeah.
And then he
And
said,
guys,
oh,
when you're doing that, when you're moving in alignment with your soul, once you learn how your inner God, once you learn your communication, we said this before, other people are maybe not going to agree with what you're doing. They're going to question you. They're going to think you're crazy. They're going to not understand. So these can be very hard times when you know that you're listening to your soul on something and you're making a decision based off of that. People aren't going to agree. So you just have to know yourself and your soul and your God in you strongly enough that you're confident in what you're doing, for whatever the outcome is going to be. And like I said, when you're listening to some people think, well, if I'm going to follow my soul, then the journey after this is going to be so smooth and so perfect because I listened to my soul. No, your soul might be putting you into some stuff, you know what I mean? To either learn something or to teach somebody else something or to show you something. So it doesn't even always mean that it's going to be the smooth and easy path when you follow your soul. But in the long run, it's one of those things you look back like 10 years from now going, wow, like I'm so glad I moved. If I hadn't moved, then, this X, Y, and Z might not have happened. Or, so when you just learn to, matter of fact, it's a good time I just heard this before we hopped on. And it was the anagram for the word faith. Find answers in the heart. So faith, find answers in the heart. I know a lot of people follow their gut. Don't always follow your gut. Maybe that can be like your first cue. Maybe that can be what brings awareness to the fact that you are looking at something, but bring that up to your heart and listen to it in your heart.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Faith, find answers in the heart.
Love that. Wow. That's awesome. Really, really cool. Yeah. Do you get them sent to you regularly or something, or how did that come up?
No, that was something I just came across, scrolling Facebook and a video popped up. And it was like one of the first, as soon as I turned it on, that was something that was said. And I was like, wow, I love that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Sweet. But I mean, sometimes our first cue is the gut, but that's not where we want to look for the answers. That just might be that thing that's telling us to look into something more, and that's when you want to bring it up to your heart and really sit with it.
Yep. Awesome. So, but I do like that a lot. That's really cool. The last thing that the last two aspects he talks on, and we did kind of touch on this a little bit, but I do want to bring it up in this blog, is he says astrology runs the show when you are spiritually asleep. What he's basically saying there is that you're not grounded. If your astrology, if your energy is being moved by the stars and the sun and the alignment at which it is at the current moment, you're not grounded. I mean, there's really no other way to explain that, because your power is given to the alignment of the stars and taken from you. So there's a lot of truth there. Now, you would say to that people that are driven by that energy, one, aren't grounded, and two, probably a little bit, not necessarily older souls, and may struggle to balance energy. So, but I do want to read this to you because the way he words it is interesting. So to that, astrology runs the show when you're spiritually asleep. He says, astrology defines the nature of the unconscious parts of you, which include your mind, emotions, ego, and body. Your natal chart determines how you unconsciously react to your environment. Your transit chart defines what you encounter within your environment. Put simply, if you are spiritually asleep in life, then your default behaviors will run on autopilot like clockwork. Think of astrology as the gears of a clock constantly cycling around, making the passage of time. And yes, again, he is basically describing an ungrounded soul, an ungrounded physical being who is driven and moved by the shifts of energy within this realm. And you see that every day in anybody that watches the news will see what someone that is driven by the universal energy of the moment,
Oh yeah, it's like, when people like just even a few short years ago didn't give anything to the moon, talk to nurses and doctors and police officers.
Oh, and school teachers.
They'll tell you.
Yo, school teachers the same. They know. Yes.
Yes. The teachers are always like, Brooke, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
All day long.
Is there a full moon tonight? Because these kids are off the charts. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the thing is, what's so interesting is that there is, you will see that. You will see habitual patterns that occur in these shifts. And we can't mistaken or can't like just push aside what all these nurses, these cops, these teachers are saying in these moments. Like they see these patterns. They might not intuitively know what exactly is going on, but what we are seeing is ungrounded souls that are moving with those behaviors, souls that aren't equipped well enough yet, that are learning, I should say, that are learning how to balance energy. But, first they have to experience how they are not able to balance energy. So, yeah. And then the last piece of this, I'll read it to you. Intuition and awareness run the show when you are spiritually awake. Now, I feel like a lot of people out there and the audience members are on the verge of becoming spiritually awake or already spiritually awake. And you guys are understanding the importance of balancing energy and why being aware of the alignments of the stars and the sun is important, but also how it doesn't necessarily or is not your driving force. And that's important. And I'll read to you what he says here. But as you become more spiritually
that's the key.
Yeah.
Not to be the driving force.
Correct.
So there's going to be times that you're going to feel it, and that's okay. But that's not going to be your driver. Mm-hmm. You don't want that to be what's driving you at the time. Yeah,
exactly.
It's going to highlight your driving force, because that's the key. There's not going to be your driving force. We're not saying that you might not feel something or that, just don't let it drive you.
So true, Brooke. So true. And I'll read this last part. But as you become more spiritually awake and aware, then you can tune in more to your life's plan. Moreover, as you practice developing the 6 virtues so that your soul develops, then you become more aligned with love. You are naturally becoming more sensitive to guidance because you are more awake and aligned with love. Furthermore, you are more centered within that which is beyond personality and thus beyond astrology. That naturally happens as you enjoy and explore meditation and being centered, like practicing mindfulness. Yeah, those are steps. You practice meditation and mindfulness to ensure that you're not driven by the alignment of the stars and the sun.
Yeah, that makes short and sweet and simple. That makes sense, that when we're not aware that is the driving, that's how we go until we find that, till we're more conscious about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So with that, to recap, astrology is a factor. It is something to be aware of. On a superficial level, it can impact us greatly. And we can also, and this is where it begins to get a little bit deeper. And that is something Brooke brought up earlier, and that is how we can use it to become more powerful. So when we are subjected to more energy, our souls can use that obviously in one of 2 ways, a lower vibrational way or a higher vibrational way. Your decision to move with that energy in a higher vibrational way will absolutely make you stronger. So you can take that energy and use it to grow, to incorporate more light into your body and thus remove more density from your body. Thus, filling your soul with more light, and making your physical body lighter. So there's so much more we can get into with that. Like you could get into diet, you can get into how the diet will affect the energy, the things that we put into our body, and how that also is affecting the different things. Because we said that you're, 75% water or something along those lines. So all of that will impact how you feel at different times and how like stronger that energy that is being presented to you may be felt, depending on what it is you are subjecting your body or putting into your body, what you're subjecting to it with. But there are no wrongs. Everything is right. You are where you are for a reason. You're learning what you need to learn. Be patient, obviously, with yourself and where you are, knowing that you're moving in the direction that you are meant to move in.
I'm being so pushed right now to throw this out there. And
Please
this made such a big difference for me. So this is for the ladies. So speaking of energy and power and, how we're told like certain things are like, oh, people with the moon, it's negative. Something that hit me when I heard it and really made me feel so much better was PMS and women. We've been told from the beginning of time that like, oh, this is when you're moody. This is when you're a bee. This is when you're this. This is when you're grumpy. This is when you're emotional. If you take all of what we're saying about energy into play, we've been told kind of these lies, and that's what we hang on to, that, oh, we're just moody or we're just emotional. This is also a time with these hormones in your body energetically that you are also most powerful. That you are also, so I know as a woman, that just changed the game for me, because I think we all get down on ourselves at this time and we all go, oh my gosh, like I'm PMS. And so therefore I'm in a bad mood and I'm being this and I'm being that. But if you flip that and understand, it's also one of the times that you are also energetically very powerful. And that's sometimes things are coming up at those times also, just like with energies. We kind of have this monthly purging, but look at it as that is when you're strong, not when, because we've been like told all of our lives that that's when we're weak and that's when we're just emotional. And that's when really it's one of the times that we are the strongest,
It's all about perspective. I love it.
Yeah. And it is, because that's the thing, like all of our lives, we've been told the negatives about it. And we've all fed into that story. When it helped me, when I heard this for me, and I'm sure that, I was like, oh my God, yes. So now when it comes and I'm getting emotional, I look at it more like a powerful energy. Like, okay, what do I want to do with this emotion? How do I want to harness this emotion? So, but it was like nagging at me. I was like, I have to throw this out there because I just know what a difference it made for me to have a different perspective on that than just to think that, it's our worst time of the month when it can actually be one of our most powerful and best and energetic times of the month also. That's
beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that perspective too, because I don't know that.
Yeah, it helped me. It really helped me.
That's awesome.
When I heard that.
Yeah, it's powerful for sure. It sounds it. All right. Well, that's our astrology podcast. Do you mind if I channel real quick? See what?
I would love it.
I'm curious to see what they have to say.
Yeah.
We are present here, my son Christopher, as you request our presence with you. And Brooke, we say hello to you, my dear, my loved one, my child, our daughter. As a collective, you are all one in being and necessarily important to one another and the purposes of which you carry in this realm. Divine peace, we tell you, is all about perspective. And what Brooke has indicated is vitally important to all that walk this realm. For your perspective upon which is that which you feel is vital to the vibrational attunement energy that you interpret it with. And that is important to the success of an ascension process. Your definition, your means at which you define what you feel, and the accordance at which you work with it is how ultimately you will move about this realm and be as a being, a human being that is. A human being that is capable of acquiring and transmitting so much love in so much glory and divinity that it is beyond conceivable at this moment in time from the human mind. We tell you now is already present inside of you, is already capable of being received and transmitted through you. It is a matter of your perspective of it and your attunement to it. We tell you now this can be attuned to by simply your intentions and thus actions in direction to it. So, excuse me. So we tell you now, should you desire to attune to all of the love that is currently within you, we simply say, desire it and then move in that direction. Find a way to be what it is you are looking for, whether this be meditation. And we do say, once again, we do encourage stillness, and this will allow for more peace to be brought to the body. And it is important to understand the separation between action and thought process, speech, which is, yes, as a direct result of the triangle, which we have brought to Christopher in the past. It is important to understand this connection and to understand how to separate it. For it is not beneficial to one when one is driven by the aspects of the moment and what is felt at that moment. We ask you to be very cognizant of this and to attune to the energy that is already within you, the loving aspects of all. Archangel Michael speaking, Orion present. We say to you to understand that it is a matter of your desires and then movement to that direction. Meditation is a key point, as we have indicated, and we do encourage you to be more meditative in your states to allow for you to understand the separation and to foster more growth in that separation between the thoughts, feelings, and actions, speech. But to be very present in light, to see and intend for that light to be your guide. You can envision a light before your being, before your physical being. So I can see right now somebody that is looking at a light in front of them. We encourage you. Okay, it's almost like I can see a turtle with like a fish dangling in front of them. It's kind of like the metaphor that they're showing me right now as the vision shifted from the being, the physical, to the light, to the turtle with the fish dangling in front of them. We tell you now, the fish is capable of being retrieved. It is not something that will always adjust. What we say is that what will adjust is your attunement to the light. So as you acquire a fish, as the turtle is it's reaching out from its current perspective to reach to the fish, we say the perspective of your understanding begins to shift with each fish that you acquire. And with that, we say, thank you. Okay, it's like they're showing me two different images at the same time, because I also see the being who is stepping into the light. And with each step, I see the light getting more and more intense. Yes, this is an aspect of great understanding that we bring to you right now. As you step into alignment and as you desire the attunement of light, you step into the different levels of consciousness, the different states of levels of understanding that are going to be brought to you as a result of your effort, as a result of your desire to be of the light. More will be revealed to you as you walk with each step, as you catch each fish presented to you at that moment, to be steady and to acquire. We do say to eat the fish, and to eat the fish, we say what comes with that is the deeper level of understanding. More light is then filled within your body. More light is filled within your soul. And thus you take the next step into the next level of understanding. But what we ask you to understand is that each step is presented in its own time frame. So we ask you do not rush through this process, for the attunement to the love and the energy is very important and takes a substantial amount of time for the physical being to attune to that light. But as you step with a diligence, understanding that each step will be taken in its divine timing and only in its divine timing. And within that perspective, you understand greatly that patience is required and love is required for where you are, to allow for that step to present the healing of which is meant to be presented to you at that moment, and not not further on down the road. You must heal what is meant to be healed at that moment so that you may take the next step and attune to the greater love that is capable to you within that next step, but not before that time is ready. And for that, we are very grateful. Go in great peace, my children. Archangel Michael present with Orion, presenting to you at this moment in time. And we say the astrological aspects of this nature are deeper than what has been discussed here today. And more information will come to this and to you later on down the road. For there are beings of the astrological aspects that will present themselves to you to help you with the greater understanding of how the power can be leveraged from these astrological times. For they are important and are capable of much growth should you so choose to accept all that comes from them. And we are so blessed to be in your presence today and say thank you with great gratitude for your understanding of all of this, both Brooke and Christopher and the audience. And we say thank you to you all. Go in great peace, my children. Be one with each other, for you are one. Do not resonate with the differences that which you see on this physical plane. That is not an aspect of great truth. They are only manifestations of the different time frames at which each soul is. But each soul is tethered together in their own divine timing, in their own divine oneness. We say be cognizant of that and focus more upon that rather than the discord of this realm and all that comes with it. You will find much peace there, understanding that we are all learning at our own pace and traveling in our own destinations. And we are grateful for this perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh.
Enoch speaking, my children. We will divulge to you more information as you proceed. In alignment with this podcast and all of its teachings, we say thank you, but understanding that there is more on this subject that will to come, and we are grateful for it. I, myself, Enoch, am a true aspect of the astrological plane and all of the energies at which it is carried with it. We will communicate more of this plane at a later time, but we are grateful for the understanding of it at this moment, for it will allow you to begin to resonate with the energy and the understanding and provide you an opportunity to step forward even greater into the tunnel, even greater into the idea of accepting another fish so that you may heal and understand on another level. And for that, we are grateful. Enoch speaking. Go in peace. We are complete. Thank you. Okay. Sorry.
I love that they're using the fish.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me.
I told you about my whole fish thing, right?
You probably have, but please forgive me. I don't remember it at the moment.
No, it's okay. So, you know, I got my fish, right?
Oh, I don't see it. Oh, okay. Yes.
Love fish,
that.
you know, and people know it as, you know, the Jesus fish, you know. But like I said, my Jesus is just a little bit different than the way church portrays Jesus, you know. And when I was mowing the yard the other day, kind of started coming to me, like they just started off with like, hey, I was like, yeah, you're like that fish on your ankle. I'm like, yeah, you know. They were like,
this is above, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
they went into, and then I didn't know where they were going with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they went into like, okay, you know, the saying, you can give a man a fish, you know, and he eats for a day, or you teach a man to fish. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah. They're like, okay, you know, it's got nothing to do with food, right? And I'm like, okay. You know, it's like basically it's knowledge, it's information, it's consciousness. So it's like to, you know, it's like you can just tell a kid how to do something, or you can tell them like why we do this, how we do this, you know, the purpose of doing this. So the fish actually is a symbol for, I just wrote down as you were talking, consciousness, information, knowledge, light, which that's what light is. Light is information, light is knowledge. So basically where they ended up taking me with this was anybody, even if you're not familiar with the Bible, everybody knows the story that Jesus turned a few fish into many fish.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. He spread his consciousness. His consciousness went from just a few to the consciousness and the light and the information going out to the 5,000. Wow. So the fish is representative of basically consciousness, knowledge, information, light, which that's what light is. Light is information, knowledge, consciousness. So it's cool
Wow.
that they use the fish. Yeah.
Wow. That is mind-blowingly amazing.
Yes. That's why I always love when your channels coincide with everything that I've been getting. It just, for me, is so much validation.
Totally.
You know, it just it just validates so much.
I completely agree, because I feel like it validates for you, but it also validates for me as well. And the profoundness of that metaphor is wow.
So
And
then when he's using the fish and the turtle, then you look at the human and the light, and that light in front of us, that's the consciousness we want to fully be in. That's the information we want. That's the, you know, and some of us, maybe there's some people that have stepped into that completely, but there's some of us that just, you know, keep getting fed that little bit at a time, you know, so we can take in a little more light at a time until information, consciousness, we're constantly taking in a little bit more of this light at a time. But that's why there's so much coming out of us, because we have to have that darkness out to make room for the light, which the light is information, consciousness, you know, all that good stuff.
that is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
literally speechless right now. That is absolutely amazing. Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you, Brooke.
Thank you. I mean, like I said, this isn't just a partnership with me and Chris. I mean, this is like a whole team that I feel like is constantly like working behind the scenes with the consciousness, with so yeah, thank them.
Totally. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Thank you. You're right.
You know?
Awesome.
But yeah, it's just so cool to see, to just when we come together. Like I said, there's probably people that think that we like hang out on a daily or something. There's probably people that think that we like conversate, or you know what I mean? And that's, so it's like I understand that there's people that like question certain things, but it's like for me and Chris, it's individuals to know that we don't communicate with each other. We did not say we haven't, but for us, even if nobody else knows what's going on, that we know that this is so divine, because it's just, like I said, it gets to be mind blowing.
Exactly.
Like there's no like the synchronicities and the, you know.
Yeah. It
I
really
don't have
is.
to convince anybody. Like I just know for myself. Like I don't have to convince people what goes on here, you know.
Yep.
But I feel like if they truly knew, like that they would be, you know, if they truly knew how divine all this wraps together all the time for us, you know.
Well, you're right there, because sometimes my ego mind comes in and says, oh man, we talked about this too much, but I'm like, but no, it's intertwined, you know. It's all there's a reason that it keeps coming up, and that's for consistency, and that's for, because it is all, it is intertwined, and it is consistent, and that actually should be more validating to me than it should lower in vibrational, you know, me, like, why does it keep coming up? It keeps coming up because that is part of it all. It's all tied together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you all for listening, for joining us, for being here. I appreciate you all.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome, and appreciate you, Brooke. Thank you all.
See ya.
Bye-bye.